I'll never forget the day I gave away $1 million for the very first time. Not because of the number on the check, not because of the cameras or the headlines, but because in that moment, everything I had worked for finally made sense. Years of grinding in silence, years of sacrificing every dollar I had, years of being told I was insane, it all led to that one act. And when I watched the look on someone's face as I handed them life-changing money, I realized that was the day I truly became who I am. That was the day my channel stopped being about me and started being about impact. Now, giving away $1 million sounds glamorous, but let me tell you, it was terrifying. Up until then, I had poured every single penny I earned back into my videos. I wasn't buying flashy cars. I wasn't stacking money in the bank. I was reinvesting like a maniac. Every time I made money, I thought, how can I use this to make an even crazier video? So when the idea came up to give away $1 million, I knew this wasn't just another stunt. This was a defining moment, because once you cross that line, there's no going back. Once you hand over that kind of money, you can't ever shrink your vision again. I remember sitting with my team, scribbling numbers on a whiteboard, trying to figure out how to even pull it off. The logistics were insane. How do you give away $1 million in a way that feels entertaining, unforgettable, and real? How do you film it so people don't think it's fake? How do you actually manage the taxes, the planning, the sheer scale of it? We had no blueprint. Nobody on YouTube had ever done something like this before. But that was the beauty of it. We weren't following footsteps, we were making new ones. And here's the truth. I was scared out of my mind. I thought, what if this doesn't work? What if people think it's staged? What if the video flops and all this money disappears into thin air? But then another voice in my head got louder. It said, Jimmy, this is exactly why you have to do it. Because it scares you. Because it's risky. Because it's insane. And that's the whole point. You don't make history by playing it safe. You don't inspire millions by doing what everyone else is doing. You have to take the leap, even if it means falling flat on your face. When the day finally came, it didn't feel real. $1 million. Do you know how insane that number is? As a kid, I used to dream about making $100 off YouTube, then maybe 1,000. Now, I was about to give away a number so big that it didn't even feel like money anymore. It felt like possibility. Every stack of bills was a door opening, a life changing, a new story being written. And I wasn't just giving it away, I was sharing it with the world. Millions of people watching online, living the moment with us, feeling the impact second by second. The reactions were priceless. Shock, disbelief, tears, laughter. Nobody expects to have their life turned upside down in an instant, and that's exactly what happened. And while the recipients were blown away, so was I. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't about views or clicks or even YouTube anymore. This was about proving that generosity could be entertaining. That kindness could scale. That giving wasn't just something you did in private, it could be a movement. But make no mistake, it wasn't easy money to give away. It represented years of grind, years of reinvesting, years of sacrifice. It was $1 million reminder of every failure, every long night, every video that nobody watched. And yet, handing it over didn't feel like losing anything. It felt like gaining everything. Because what I got in return wasn't money, it was identity. It was clarity. It was the moment I knew exactly who I was and what this channel was going to be about for the rest of my life. People don't realize how much trust it takes to give away something like that. When you hand over $1 million, you're betting on the audience. You're betting that people will see the value, feel the authenticity, and share the experience. You're betting that they'll understand this isn't a gimmick, it's real. And when the video dropped, the reaction proved the bet was worth it. The internet exploded, headlines everywhere. People couldn't believe a YouTuber had actually done it. And that disbelief turned into loyalty, into energy, into a wave that carried the channel higher than ever before. What hit me the hardest wasn't the hype, it was the ripple effect. Thousands of comments from people saying they were inspired to give, even in small ways. Stories of viewers tipping waitresses more than usual, helping out strangers, starting their own challenges in their communities. That's when I knew we had tapped into something bigger than views. We had turned giving into entertainment, and that was a revolution. Of course, behind the scenes, it was chaos. People see the final video and think it's all fun and smooth, but the planning, the stress, the logistics, it was a nightmare. Making sure everything was legal, making sure the recipients actually got the money, making sure the filming captured the emotion without ruining it, it stretched us to the limit. There were moments when I thought we'd bitten off more than we could chew, but then I remembered that's the point. If it's not stretching you, it's not growing you. And I wasn't here to play small. Handing over that money changed me in ways I didn't expect. It stripped away any leftover fear I had about going all in. After that day, I knew I could never half commit again. Because I had proof that the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, not just financially, but emotionally, culturally, globally. That video wasn't just content. It was a statement, a declaration of what this channel stood for: scale, creativity, generosity, and an unbreakable work ethic. Looking back, I realized that moment was a turning point. Before, I was just a creator trying to grow. After, I became a creator with a mission. The mission wasn't just to entertain, it was to impact, to inspire, to reinvent what was possible on this platform. And the crazy thing is, it all started with a single decision: to give when it would have been easier to keep, to risk when it would have been safer to save, to bet on impact instead of comfort. I can't even put into words how powerful that realization was. Because once you see the effect of giving at that scale, you can't go back. You can't shrink. You can't tell yourself that's enough. It becomes an addiction, not to money, not to fame, but to impact. And that's why I always say, the day I gave away $1 million was the day I became who I am, because it crystallized everything I had been working toward. It gave me clarity that no amount of views or subscribers ever could. The truth is, the money wasn't the real prize. The real prize was the connection it created with the people who received it, with the millions of viewers who watched it, and with myself, as I finally saw the bigger picture of why I was doing all this in the first place. That's what made it priceless. That's what made it unforgettable. So if you're sitting there wondering what it takes to hit your own $1 million moment, here's the answer: sacrifice, obsession, the willingness to risk it all when the world tells you to play safe, the courage to give when everyone else is hoarding, and the faith to believe that if you pour everything you have into something meaningful, the impact will come back tenfold. That's what I learned that day. That's what shaped me, and that's what will drive me for the rest of my life. Because giving away $1 million wasn't about losing money, it was about gaining purpose. And purpose is the one thing you can't buy, but the one thing that makes every dollar worth it. After the camera stopped rolling that day, after the dust settled from giving away $1 million, I remember sitting there in silence. Everyone around me was buzzing with excitement. The crew couldn't believe we had actually pulled it off. The recipients were still in shock, and the internet was exploding with disbelief. But me, I just sat there and thought, okay, now what? Because when you do something that massive, something the world didn't think was possible, the real question isn't how you celebrate, it's how you top it. And in that moment, I knew my life and my channel would never be the same again. What most people don't see is how quickly a milestone like that can turn into pressure. Before the $1 million giveaway, people clicked on my videos because they were curious about what kind of crazy stunt I would try next. But after that video, curiosity turned into expectation. The audience didn't just want to be entertained anymore. They wanted to be shocked. They wanted to be floored. They wanted to see me push further, harder, and crazier than before. And honestly, I felt the same way. Once I had crossed that line, I couldn't imagine going back to smaller ideas. Playing it safe wasn't an option. That realization hit me like a brick. The $1 million giveaway wasn't just a video, it was a declaration. It told the world that this channel wasn't afraid to take risks on a scale that didn't even seem real. And it told me that if I was gonna keep growing, if I was gonna stay true to who I had become, I had to double down. I had to chase bigger dreams, crazier builds, and more audacious acts of generosity than anyone had ever seen before. That wasn't just my new strategy, it was my new identity. But let me be real with you, behind all the hype, I was terrified. Giving away that money meant putting everything on the line. If the video had flopped, it could have bankrupted us. If people thought it was fake, it could have destroyed our credibility. And if we couldn't follow it up with something equally impactful, it could have ended the momentum we had worked so hard to build. That fear sat in the back of my mind like a shadow. But instead of running from it, I used it as fuel. Fear can paralyze you, or it can energize you. I chose the second option. The first step was figuring out how to keep generosity fresh. Because here's the thing, money alone doesn't make a video great. People don't tune in just to see dollar signs. They tune in to see stories, to feel something, to experience shock and joy and disbelief. So I knew I had to reinvent the way we gave. It wasn't enough to hand someone a bag of cash. We had to build moments. We had to wrap generosity and creativity so that every video felt like an event, not just a transaction. That's when the ideas started flowing: giant challenges with cash prizes, survival games where the winner walked away with life-changing money, contests where friends, strangers, or even entire communities could win something insane. Those ideas didn't just appear out of nowhere. They came from long nights of brainstorming with my team, from scribbles on whiteboards, from failed experiments and scrapped concepts. We would sit for hours asking ourselves, what's the craziest way we can give this away? What would make people laugh? What would make them cry? What would make them say, I can't believe this is real? That process was exhausting, but it was also electric, because every time we cracked an idea that felt impossible, we knew we were onto something that could change the game again. And trust me, the logistics were brutal. Giving away $1,000 is easy. Giving away a car is doable. But giving away massive sums of money or outrageous prizes means lawyers, taxes, shipping, contracts, insurance, you name it. We had to deal with it. We were writing the rulebook as we went. There were no templates, no examples to copy. We were building this machine from scratch, one challenge at a time. And every time we figured it out, we got stronger, smarter, and bolder. What kept me sane through all of that was the reactions. Because nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the look on someone's face when you hand them something that changes their life. That shock, that joy, that flood of emotions, it's priceless. And when you capture it on camera, when you share it with millions of people around the world, you create a ripple effect. Suddenly, generosity isn't just happening in the video, it's happening everywhere. Viewers start giving more in their own lives. They start seeing kindness as exciting, as powerful, as something worth talking about. That ripple effect was what made all the stress worth it. But here's the flip side. When you set the bar that high, the bar becomes a weight. Every upload after that $1 million giveaway carried the question, will this be enough? And sometimes it wasn't. There were videos where we invested massive amounts of time and money and the views didn't match the effort. There were times when I sat in my room, staring at the numbers, wondering if we were losing our edge. Those moments hurt. They made me question myself, but they also made me sharper, because every failure is data. Every flop is a teacher, and instead of letting them break me, I let them train me. The team grew with the vision. What started as a handful of friends quickly became an army of people working behind the scenes. Builders, editors, planners, producers, every role expanded as the ideas got bigger, and managing that wasn't easy. Leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's about carrying the weight of everyone's expectations, about setting the tone, about being the one who works hardest so nobody else has an excuse. I knew that if I slacked even for a second, the whole machine could slow down. So I made sure I outworked everyone every single day. At times it was overwhelming. 16-hour days, 7-day weeks, months where life was nothing but filming, editing, planning, and problem solving. There were sacrifices, social life, downtime, sleep, but I didn't care. Because every time I saw the impact we were making, every time I saw someone's life flipped upside down in the best way possible, it reminded me why I was doing it. Impact became my fuel. Generosity became my obsession, and the audience became my partner in all of it. The crazy part is, the haters only made me hungrier. People said the giveaways were fake, they said the money wasn't real, they said it was all staged, and instead of getting angry, I laughed. Because while they were busy doubting, we were busy delivering. While they were typing comments, we were changing lives. And every time someone said, there's no way he can keep this up, it made me want to go even bigger. Doubt wasn't a wall, it was fuel. That's the lesson I carried with me after the $1 million giveaway. The bigger the risk, the bigger the impact. Playing it safe doesn't inspire anyone. Keeping money for yourself doesn't change the world. But risking everything, your resources, your energy, your sanity, for something bigger than yourself, that's where greatness lives. That's what transforms a YouTube video into a movement. And once you've tasted that, you can't go back. Looking back, I realized that moment wasn't about the money at all. It was about identity. It was about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is who I am. This is what this channel stands for. This is the kind of impact we're gonna make. And from that day forward, everything we did had to live up to that promise. Bigger challenges, bigger risks, bigger generosity. Not because the audience demanded it, but because I demanded it of myself. So if you're chasing your own version of $1 million moment, here's the truth. It won't come from playing it safe. It won't come from waiting for the perfect time. It won't come from dipping your toe in and quitting when it gets hard. It comes from obsession, from sacrifice, from being willing to risk it all for the chance to create something bigger than yourself. And when you finally hit that moment, when you finally cross that line, you'll realize the same thing I did. The reward isn't in what you gain, it's in who you become. When I think about everything that came after the $1 million giveaway, it almost feels unreal. That one video wasn't just content, it was a pivot point. It was like flipping a switch and turning my entire channel into something new. Suddenly, the world saw me differently. I wasn't just the kid who made crazy challenges anymore. I was the guy who gave away $1 million. And once you carry that label, once you set that bar, you can't ever go back. You can't shrink, you can't get comfortable, you have to keep climbing. The crazy thing was, that moment didn't make me relax, it made me hungrier. Most people would hit a milestone like that and think, I've done it, I can slow down now. But for me, it was the exact opposite. I thought, if 1 million changes everything, imagine what 10 million could do. Imagine what 100 million could do. Imagine what happens if I never stop pushing. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about impact, about scale, about proving that generosity could be limitless if you worked hard enough and risked big enough. But the higher you climb, the heavier the weight gets. After the $1 million giveaway, every idea I had carried a question. Is this big enough? Will this blow people's minds? Will this set a new bar, or will it feel like a step backward? That pressure was real, and it forced me to get smarter, to get more creative, to push my imagination further than I thought possible. Because if I wasn't willing to push myself, the audience wouldn't stick around. They wanted bigger, they wanted crazier, they wanted to be shocked again, and I had to deliver. That's when I started thinking in terms of reinvention. Giving away money straight up was powerful, but it couldn't be the only thing. If we just handed out cash over and over, people would get used to it. The magic would fade, so I had to wrap generosity in storytelling. I had to find ways to make every giveaway feel like an experience, a journey, a spectacle. That's why you saw us building massive challenges, setting up insane competitions, and creating worlds where money wasn't just given, it was earned in the wildest, most entertaining ways imaginable. And let me tell you, those builds were no joke. We went from small setups to giant productions that looked like they belonged in Hollywood. Entire sets designed for one video, huge props, massive arenas, challenges so complex they took weeks to plan. Behind the scenes, it was chaos blueprints, budgets, schedules, 100 things going wrong at once. But that chaos was the price of scale. And every time we pulled it off, every time we turned an impossible idea into reality, it reminded me that this was exactly what I was meant to do. The reactions made it all worth it. Not just from the winners, though those moments were incredible, seeing someone break down in tears, realizing their life had just been changed forever. But also from the audience. Millions of people watching around the world, gasping, laughing, cheering, feeling the rush of generosity as if it were happening to them. That connection was bigger than any paycheck. It was proof that impact could travel through a screen and land in hearts everywhere. But with every win came more doubt from outsiders. People accused us of faking it, of staging it, of using smoke and mirrors. And instead of letting that negativity bring me down, I let it drive me. Because the best answer to doubt is proof. The best response to hate is results. So every time someone said, there's no way he can keep this up, I made sure the next video was even bigger. Every time they said this is unsustainable, I found a way to scale it higher. Doubt wasn't a roadblock, it was fuel. The more we pushed, the more the channel grew, and soon the ripple effect started to spread. Other creators began experimenting with giveaways. Some started challenges, some started giving back to their audiences, some tried to copy the formula outright, and honestly, I loved it. Because to me, that was proof of concept. It meant the idea had broken through. It meant we weren't just making videos anymore, we were shaping culture. We were turning generosity into a trend. And even if some people did it for clout, the truth is, lives were still being changed. That ripple was bigger than me, and it was unstoppable. But don't think for a second that any of this was easy. The workload skyrocketed, the budgets ballooned, the stakes grew higher every single day. There were nights I lay awake, wondering if I was pushing too far, wondering if one wrong move could make the whole thing collapse. That fear never went away, but I learned to live with it. In fact, I learned to love it. Because fear is proof that you're doing something bold. And if you're not scared, you're not dreaming big enough. The truth is, the $1 million giveaway wasn't the peak, it was the blueprint. It taught me that generosity could be entertainment, that risk could be strategy, and that the bigger the gamble, the bigger the story. From that day forward, everything we did was built on those lessons. Every new video had to shock, had to inspire, had to leave people saying, I can't believe that just happened. And as exhausting as that was, it was also exhilarating. Because when you live at the edge of impossible, every day feels alive. Looking back, I realized that giving away that million didn't just shape my channel, it shaped me. It taught me discipline, because you can't gamble resources at that level without being calculated. It taught me resilience because not every massive idea works out. It taught me leadership because building a team capable of pulling this off meant inspiring them with my energy, my vision, and my refusal to quit. And most importantly, it taught me purpose. Because once you experience the power of impact, once you see lives change before your eyes, you can never settle for anything less. People ask me all the time, how do you keep going? How do you keep topping yourself? The answer is simple, but not easy. I work harder than ever. I never stop pushing. I never let myself think I've made it, because the second you believe you've arrived, you start dying. Success isn't a finish line, it's fuel. It's proof that you can go even further, even faster, even bigger, and that mindset is what keeps me moving forward. So if you're sitting there dreaming of your own version of $1 million moment, here's what you need to hear. It won't happen by accident. It won't happen by luck. It won't happen by waiting. It happens when you put in the hours nobody else will. When you risk what nobody else dares to risk. When you stay obsessed long after everyone else has given up. That's the secret. Not talent, not luck. Just relentless, insane work ethic fueled by a vision so big it scares you. The day I gave away $1 million, I didn't just change someone else's life, I changed my own. I stepped into the identity I had been building all along. The creator who would risk everything to give everything. And that identity has guided me through every challenge, every failure, every success since. Because no matter how high the numbers climb, no matter how massive the builds get, no matter how insane the risks feel, I know exactly who I am and what I stand for. And that clarity is more valuable than any prize. That's why I say it over and over. The $1 million giveaway wasn't about money, it was about purpose. It was about realizing that impact is the real prize, that generosity is the ultimate flex, and that the best way to inspire the world is to show them what happens when you give without holding back. And that's the mission I'll keep chasing for the rest of my life.